Okay.
So welcome everyone to the Miami Lawyer Daddy podcast. We are very lucky to have a great young attorney. She has her own firm. She's been practicing for 6 years.
Going on 7.
7 years. And she's on her own. She's practicing family law. And we actually had mutual friends that we didn't know about. We got connected off of Instagram, which I love. There are legitimate, real people on Instagram.
Yes.
Which makes me feel good because a lot of my marketing is on Instagram. So I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
It's okay.
Parastoo is your first name.
I have 2 last names now. Well, I got married in September of 22. So my last name is Majd. But then I have another last name. I haven't officially changed it, but it's Curlin. And I feel like people can say that better. So maybe I'll just go with that for now.
I was wondering how, because you're on your channels, it's M-A-J-D.
M-A-J-D, yeah, Majd.
I was wondering how to pronounce
I think
that.
people overthink it because there's no
Majd.
vowel in between.
Do I just ignore the J? Or do I ignore the D?
You ignore neither.
You just roll them together.
Yes, exactly.
That's funny that you haven't changed your name yet because my wife's also an attorney. And she hasn't changed her name and she has no plans to change her name.
Yeah, I keep getting crap for it. But I'm going to. It's just I'm traveling this fall and I feel like I just don't want to go through that.
It's a lot of
passport nonsense but I actually have never cared what people call me other than I don't like when people call me Paris. But other than that, you can call me whatever and I'll respond. Just tell me what you're going to call me and I'll respond because I feel like my name is so complicated that I just like to simplify it for people.
What is the ethnicity? What is the name?
I'm Persian. So I was born in Iran, but I immigrated with my family. I was about 1.5. So it's 1993.
Okay.
When we came to the States and I grew up in Kentucky. So
Amazing.
I didn't know. It's very random.
So what is are you going to change your name? Because this is funny. Never would have thought I would have started the podcast with this, but we were talking about it. We were talking about it yesterday with my wife and I was like, do you
want her to?
I never cared. I was like, I don't care. Well, she had her own practice and she has a letterhead and I wouldn't want to change my name. But I was like, I don't know. I was feeling playful yesterday, and I was like, it would be nice if you changed your name after.
When are you going to become part of our family?
7 years. Yeah. Well, we have 2 boys, and they obviously have my last name.
Sure.
So we were playing around, and she was asking them what if they know their last names because they're little, so they know their first names, but they know their last names too, but. And I was like, don't you want to? I was just kind of poking the bear.
Of course.
And I was like, don't you want to have the same last name as your boys?
Yeah, he does the same thing too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
We don't have any children, but he's like, when's that happening? I'm like, no, I have the entire packet. I did this. I know how to officially and legally change names because I do that as part of my practice.
Yeah, for you it's easier than the regular. I don't need to do that. When you get married, there's a simpler way to do it. You don't have to go through the court. You can just do it through filling out your Social Security, sending in your marriage certificate. So I have an entire pile of everything. I printed everything out. I did it all. I just haven't sent it in because I'm like, by the time I get around to finishing it and I'm traveling, I will. I told him I will. But I made it. But no.
I promise.
By the way,
he was like, "Are you gonna do it, right?"
Really
I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it."
I was just playing with her.
Yeah, of course.
But it was funny. But
he kind of plays with me too.
Practically speaking, though, if you submit it all right, and then it comes back the day before you leave.
No, I'm screwed.
Then isn't it a disaster?
Right. No, I can't because you have to legally change it on your driver's license, your Social Security card, your passport, your everything, your bank accounts. It's a whole thing. And I'm kind of like, do we need to make this a thing?
And if I'm
32,
if you travel during that time, it's going to be.
Exactly.
Screwed, right?
Exactly. If it's not updated, I don't have my passport updated, then I think it's going to be a problem. So I'm kind of a procrastinator, but I get things done, but I wait until I'm like, okay, no more. And then I do it. So.
Well, the good thing is that you're never going to have to do it.
No, I don't have to.
Yeah, unless your husband's I want the name changed,
yeah.
Otherwise I'm out.
Right. No, he wouldn't make any demand like that. But he's kind of been poking fun at me too. He's like, "You're do it, right?" And my email signature says Parastoo Majd because I wanted to make Majd my middle name.
Right.
Because professionally I'm known as Parastoo Majd. I can't really drop the Majd because I don't want to just because everything is online Parastoo Majd, so I can't really drop it at this point. I didn't get married when I was 22 or anything, so I was a little older. Well, older. I think it's silly,
I was 30 when I.
But you were already a professional.
Yeah, exactly. I'd already established.
So you were already a professional.
I'd already established
like my wife was, and
right.
You already have.
She's an attorney, so she has like a name associated with, what she does.
Right.
So I don't want people getting confused. So I wanted to keep it in there, but then it becomes so long that I feel like people are just going to drop the last name altogether and just call me Parastoo. So I'm like, is there
any point?
Yeah. But I think it's more like, oh, we're a family and like, let's all be on the same page. Like I get it.
I think it's a good thing, but I never really made it a huge priority.
Yeah, that's good.
So, whatever.
That's good. I mean, she'll come around.
Maybe. I think she will. She's been like working a little bit less.
Yeah.
And
what does she do?
She's a real estate attorney.
Real estate.
Closings
great.
And stuff.
Great.
And she was really busy for the first 2 years after COVID because everyone and their mother was moving to Florida.
Yeah, of course.
So it was really busy. And then now it's cooled off a little bit.
Good.
So she has a little bit more time to spend with the boys. Yeah. And it's been good. So
that's
maybe
awesome.
we're
I may need her one
direction.
day, honestly. It's good to have a real estate attorney when you buy a house.
Yes.
For sure.
You need that for the title. And it's a small firm. So like same mentality as your practice and my practice probably.
Perfect. Yeah.
Small firm, lots of client attention.
It's just you, and do you have an associate?
No, okay. No. I have had, so my story is I've been all over the place. I had a job. I was a regular employee at a firm, a small firm that did big cases. And then I got a lot of experience there. Almost tried my first case. Left and made my own firm. Had a partner. Then I had a partner. Then I left him. And I left him and I was back on my own. Then I built a small practice up with an associate and like 5 staff. Then I met another partner and we merged our firms together. And then after like 5 years of that, we were kind of big. We had like 10 associates, like 40 staff and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's really big.
And I just didn't like being part of such a big organization. I'm very
I get you on
introverted. I want to just kind of like do my own thing. Yes.
I didn't get that impression.
Well, I have the ability to turn it on and off.
Same.
But
very much so the same.
I just didn't like the high stress, like lots of volume, lots of internet leads, doing a lot of just like really grindy. Like I'm still 24/7 kind of personality, but it's a different vibe when it's a huge operation and a lot of internet stuff. So
I definitely resonate with that because I can turn it on and off because I joke like, oh my gosh, networking is such a drain for me.
Yeah.
And my friend will be like, but you're so good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but
you don't know how much of a toll it's taking.
It's like a light switch you have to turn on and off. Because then I would rather be just, if I could, it's like in my bed watching my shows.
Yeah, you want to be in your PJs.
Right. Like comfy. I want to be low key, but I can also like have fun in that type of environment and enjoy it. But I've been doing so much networking lately that it does. It's like I really hate small talk, but you have to do the whole small talk and so what do you do? Where do you live?
It's brutal, right? You hate it.
I do.
Yeah, just be honest.
Honestly. Yeah, no, I'll be honest. I hate it. I'd rather not do so much of that and just talk to more smaller groups of people that I'm actually going to connect with.
Yes.
But I understand it's vital to my brand and people figuring out who I am, finding out who I am. Because at the end of the day, the more people I meet, the more potential there is for them to send me business, for me to send them business, and to grow my business. And that's my ultimate goal. So I know it's vital. It's just, since January, I went to the Family Law Conference in Orlando. And it's been nonstop networking since then. And I gave myself a resolution this year. Last year, it was fix my website, get my online presence more, which I have. And that's how we met. Mm-hmm. And then this year, it was, okay, time to network. Like, get out there, meet people, go to the receptions with the judges, get your face out there, Yep. It's a lot. It's like a full-time job, honestly, in and of itself. But I know it's vital, especially if you're on your own, like me, It's
super important when you're on your own to force yourself, I think, to be in these positions where you're surrounded by a lot of people. On a regular day, an attorney like you or I might have a lot of stuff that we do, but we might not ever see might not see anybody the whole day, right? You might be on the phone,
or bill for it or anything. Emails. But you don't bill. Do you bill by the hour?
We do not.
Okay.
Everything that we do is content. I know. And that was honestly, I never thought I would be an injury attorney, but when I started, the first job I had just kind of randomly, the first job as an attorney, was doing like business law and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so boring. The first job I had as an attorney was an injury firm. And I was just like, this is so cool. Like, there's no bickering about billable hours. There's no like nickel and diming from the clients about like 0.6, 0.8. You know, you called me, you know, and I was just like, this is great. Like, we sign them up. We're they're their attorney. Our job is to guide them through the process, get them as much money as possible. And the more we get them, the more we make. It's like very clean. Honestly, I think that's why personal injury attorneys do so well, is because it's the nature of the retainer.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
The retainer.
Like, incentives. No one ever says, why did you bill 1 hour for that? No one ever says that, but I've noticed in the last year, people are becoming annoying with bills. Like, I'll send them a bill and they're like, oh, I need a discount. I'm like, this isn't Walgreens or like, well, I guess this isn't a bazaar in, you know, Iran. You can't just go like barter with me.
Yeah.
You know?
This is like, what I spent. Like, this is the bill.
This is the time. Like, if you have a dispute about the time I spent, then let's talk about it. But, you know, I've had that issue. And then I just want to like make people happy sometimes. So I'm like, okay, so I'll give you like a little discount. But then I've learned if you give them a discount, then they'll ask for another one.
That's the baseline.
Then they'll ask for another one. Then they'll ask for another one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't keep discounting everything I do. Like, I'm actually doing the work. And I think my fees are very reasonable. Yeah. So it's becoming a thing. And I have a lot of Persian clients who find me, and they love to ask me for discounts. Are
they like, you know, I'm Jewish. Jews obviously are notorious for not always being penny pinchers.
My husband's Jewish too.
But you know, we're always going to ask.
Sure, Persian people are the same way.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know that I would ever do it in a professional service. Like, I would feel embarrassed asking, but most people don't, and they'll say right off, "Oh, what's your hourly rate?" It's this. Okay, so right now it's $3.95, but it was $3.50.
Right.
And so I say it's $3.50, and they're like, "Do you think you could do $300?" I'm like, this isn't a negotiation of my. Like, if you don't want it, don't take it.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I would do it because I was like, I need the business.
Of course,
and
every
now
young attorney does.
I don't want. I'm trying to attract a certain clientele, and if you can't accept what I'm telling you my hourly rate is, then it's always something, and they ask the most, and then they're like, "I'm Persian, you're Persian.
What's the Persian discount?" You're like, "I'm a human, you're a human.
Discount because I'm Persian.
I need to eat just the same as you."
I'm like, what? I've never gone up to someone and been like, "I'm a girl and you're a girl. Will you give me a discount? Like, we're both women."
Well, people,
it's so funny.
People will try whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned as I've gotten older. And
that's true. It's very true.
When my first partnership, so when I was like 4 years out, we did a lot of commercial stuff. So we did a lot of hourly billing. I still was trying to do mostly injury cases, but like you said, when you're young, I was 29.
You just take whatever you
got to take whatever, because, you know, you got to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And he used to say, because he came from a background of his father was a big commercial litigator and a family law, and so a lot of hourly billing. He said, and I always remember this, you have to train your clients just like they're your kids. Like, you train them. You're like, and it's painful, especially the clients that are going to be like, if you have a case that's going to take 4 or 5 years, you know, like that's a big file.
Right.
Training them in the first 2 or 3 months, the first 2 or 3 billing cycles.
That's really smart.
That will pay you big dividends for potentially the next 40 billing cycles.
That's really smart. I need to get better at doing that. I've told myself no more discounts, no more, unless I really like the client and they've spent a lot of money. And I will naturally just go through invoices and no charge things. I'll no charge some emails I read. I'll no charge little things here and there just to be cognizant of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's really great clients that will pay. They won't even look at it. They don't care. They're there. They're awesome clients. And then they're the ones that are always going to do what they're going to do. So My problem is if you do it once, I've learned my lesson. They're always going to come back.
It feels like, it's just a concession one time. Right. It's only $180.
Yes,
but it's not.
We had to hunt someone down at a principal. We hunted him down for months over $650 invoice because I gave him a discount, and he wanted to pay it in 2 payments, and I said, as long as you do it timely, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm not giving you a discount.
Right.
And so then time comes, and I've trying to force I don't want to be out of those conversations completely. Yeah. I don't want, unless I have to get involved. Yeah. But my assistant's becoming more of like the enforcer of and she's in the Philippines, and she's young. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, you got to tell them, like, they're never going to see you. You're all the way in the Philippines. You got to tell them, you pay this or we send it to collections. By the way, I've never sent anyone to collections.
Right. But you have they have to know that that's a threat.
Right. She's like threatening. And then in my retainer agreement says we can add interest too. Yeah. So people get really freaked out when you're like, we're going to start adding interest. So she's starting to do that. But I hate it. I'm like, it's not that much money.
It sucks.
It's like not like I'm chasing you down for 20 grand.
Yeah.
I would never let anything get to that point. I know some people have like large bills.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast in family law. And the people feel like a little bit more entitled maybe because it's a personal issue they're going through, and they're like, why should I be paying for this? But it's like, I'm helping you through your problem and I'm providing you with the service.
That's really unfair because
it's so unfair.
You're a professional. And their family situation has nothing to do with you.
It's so unfair. I know.
Yeah, but
half of the people get it and half of them don't. And I'm starting to pick up on,
the red flags.
The red flags from the very beginning.
But it's hard once you're engaged. Especially in like family court. The process of unraveling representation, what is that?
It's not that bad. Okay. I mean, unless I had like a trial scheduled in a couple weeks and I tried to get out, the court may say no.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just had a client I had to get out. She just, wanted another attorney, and there was nothing personal. She wanted someone else to represent her. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And I filed my motion to withdraw, or they can usually sign a consent saying that they consent to your withdrawal. And then that makes it easier.
Or the new attorney can file.
Or a stipulation for substitution.
Yeah, that's what we do in PI.
So, that's happened, but I've never been denied getting out of a case. I think the only way someone would deny you is if there was like a big hearing scheduled or a trial, and you're trying to get out the week before or 2 weeks before, and the judge is like, no way, because this is just going to delay, everything. And then they're going to have to go get another attorney.
Right. The judges hate that.
So very rarely do I ever I would never get denied generally, but I don't like to withdraw from cases. I'd like to go from start to finish, but sometimes you got to get out.
But you can't be held hostage.
You got to get out before it gets bad.
Yeah,
That's also another lesson I've learned.
You can't let them hold you hostage.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's another thing that you learn, I think, as you go, because you focus so much on being a good lawyer and the law itself and the claims and being a tactician that you lose sight of who am I representing? And
are they being honest with me? Are they good people? Have they lied? Like, I can't deal with liars. Like, if you lie to me, I'm done. Like, I don't care what you tell me. Unless you tell me like I murdered someone.
Of the truth. Right.
But unless it's something unethical, I don't care what you tell. But like if you lie to me and I can't trust you, I feel like that's it for me. It doesn't happen very often. It's only happened like once or twice in the last 5 years where someone just like continuously lies and I find out. I hate that. I'd rather you just tell me what's up.
Well, you're when you find out, you're like, wow, I've really wasted a lot of time, and I've, in your shoes, potentially made misrepresentations to the court,
to the other attorney, and makes you kind of look stupid, like egg on your face, and so I just would rather someone tell me everything so I could be completely prepared and know how to deal with it. But family law is so crazy, it's like a circus. So I don't know.
Only imagine.
Half the time I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
It's not the same, but when our clients lie to us, it really is a big deal in the sense that, like, for example, because everything we do is contingency.
Yeah.
So if we think that the facts of the case are XYZ and they're not XYZ, a case that we thought was worth $1 million
really good,
is now worth $100,000, and we might have even spent $100,000 of our own money on the case.
Now we find out it's not true.
Well, what do
and
you do then? You just get out?
It depends on the facts of the case. If it's a really big lie and it's potentially enough to get the whole case dismissed, try and settle the case and explain to the client that he could be sanctioned and all this other stuff. So it's never pretty. And like we were talking about, you learn to see the red flags earlier. And then you can say, I have a feeling this guy might be lying. I think he's lying about this one little detail.
Right.
Which doesn't really matter, but it makes me question everything now.
And then let me investigate it on my own before I go take the case.
Exactly. Or let me investigate it before we file suit.
Right.
Before we schedule it for trial. Before I spend $25,000 on expert witnesses, for example.
Sure, because you're coming out of pocket for all these costs. That's crazy.
Because we have to pay for everything in this business. So it's very expensive.
Of course.
So tell me, what is your bread and butter kind of case in terms of family law?
So usually divorces.
Okay.
So divorce, and then they have divorces that are with property, without property. So with children, without children, with property and children, all different types.
So the levels of complexity go up.
Correct. The more that's there. So the most, I would say, simple divorce would be a divorce with no children, no property.
Yeah.
And then usually that's uncontested. What are they going to fight for?
Uncontested just means that basically the parties are not. Does it mean that they don't have attorneys or
no?
Because I've heard of that. Yeah.
No, it just means that they're not fighting over anything.
Okay.
Because in Florida, you have to file suit.
Okay.
No matter what.
To get the divorce.
Right.
Okay.
You have to file suit.
Okay.
Even if it's uncontested. But you can do a simplified dissolution of marriage, which means that we have no minor children and we're not fighting over any of our assets. Even if they do have assets, we're not fighting over it, whether they do or not. And then we want to file jointly. You can file a joint petition saying that, court, we want a divorce. We have no minor children. This is where I live. This is where he lives. We have figured out everything. We either have entered into a marital settlement agreement or we want to keep that private. We don't have that in writing. Here's everything. Sorry, I've just grazed the mic. Here's everything. And then, file and then get our final judgment. You can't do that if you have children. You can't do a simplified petition.
Okay.
So yes, like you said, the more is in it, like children, property, assets, all of that, the more complex it gets. Then you have another leg of it, which is paternity custody. So if you weren't married, but you have children or a child, and you want the court to enter a parenting plan and the court to make determinations as to time sharing, meaning custody, we call it time sharing in Florida, then you would do a paternity lawsuit. And it's just an antiquated way of saying we aren't married and we have kids.
Time sharing is the technical term?
Time sharing is a technical term, but if you're married, then the time sharing is under the umbrella of the divorce. Like the children issues are under the umbrella of the divorce. If you're not married, we call it paternity. It's filed under Chapter 742, which is the paternity statutes.
Okay.
So those are mainly my area of cases. Paternity, divorce. Most of my cases right now are divorce cases.
Okay.
And then they have children and they have assets and some of them don't. But I mean, it's not going to be contested unless they're fighting over something. And if they're fighting over something, it's usually kids or money.
Timeshare, basically.
And property. Yeah, time sharing or parental responsibility. So you have time sharing, which is how much time you spend with the kids, custody schedule, and then you have parental responsibility, which is who is responsible for decisions. And usually it's shared, meaning mom and dad or mom and mom, dad and dad work together to make decisions, major decisions in the child's life that have to do with the child's welfare, like health, medical, religion, all of that.
Okay.
And then sometimes in, extraneous circumstances, only one parent will have sole parental responsibility. So they don't have to confer with the other parent.
So
that doesn't happen often though.
With like a deadbeat dad, he might have
or like someone in jail.
2 hours a week that he gets to see the kid, but that's it. Like he has no...
He has no actual decision making.
Maybe he has to pay alimony and he gets 2 hours and then he gets no decision making.
Totally. Like I have a case where the dad, he's not a deadbeat. He's actually, without saying too much about what he does, because then they give it away. But he has a good job. He's just not in the daughter's life. And he's like, I'll agree that you have sole parental.
So he agreed to it.
Yeah, he agreed to that.
Which
kind of is sad. But, mom is primary custodial parent, and she's going to be making the decision. So let's say the child has to get some sort of medical attention. Generally speaking, parents would have to agree, unless it's like emergency life or death.
Yeah.
And then in this situation, she can just make the decision without having to. But that's not the, norm. The norm would be shared parental. So all those types of issues. And then I do, prenup, postnup, those agreements, marital agreements. And I can do name changes. So sometimes I'll do a name change. Yeah, okay. It's very easy, but there's some things you have to do in the court system that, more administrative things like checklists of items. So I usually charge like a flat fee for those.
Okay.
And then, so my bread and butter, I would say, would be divorce and custody.
Do you see, I feel like I see people that either should have got, like, they're married. They think they're married, right? Because in some countries, living together is married, right? Okay. So they think they're married. And I've even asked people, I'm like, because in personal injury cases, if I'm representing a married couple, I need to know, are you guys married? And then they'll be like, yeah. And I'll be like, and then I'm like, depending on the level of sophistication.
Like, give me an example, like they're married in like
No, I'll say like, are you married? And they'll just be like, yes. And I'm like, you went to the courthouse and you did like an actual, like you did a marriage license. And they're like, oh, no, not like that.
Interesting.
So just because they have kids and because they live together, they like, in their mind, they consider that's marriage.
So that's a common law marriage.
Yeah,
but
right.
we don't recognize common law in Florida.
Exactly. So that's what I tell them. I'm like, no,
but you're not married.
You're not married.
At least in the eyes of Florida. Maybe in California.
Right, exactly.
So we don't do that here. There's something called putative marriage here, and it's a very complicated area of law. And it's like if you relied on someone representing to you that you were married and it relied to your detriment, it came up in one of a big case I handled because I worked at a firm that we did a lot of complex cases.
Okay.
So it's very, it doesn't get argued often at all. But no common law marriage in Florida. Like, you're married or you're not. And we don't recognize separation here either. So you can separate, but you're still married.
This is kind of where I was going with, like, the practical, like, giving out people, like, practical advice about, they don't think, they think, oh, it's okay that I haven't lived with my wife for 7 years, but it's no big deal. Like, I don't have to do that paperwork.
Everything's been separate and all that.
Or, we live together, so we're married. Well, you're not.
Yeah, like it might work for some people, but I feel like in the example that you gave, oh, it's okay, we've been separated. Well, it's okay until it's not, because then you may want to get married, and then you have to get a divorce, or something happens in life that makes them think, okay, it's time for me to get a divorce. Like, I need to officially, on paper, be divorced from this person.
Right.
And then they realize, oh, we've been married the whole time. And technically, you can make arguments to the court, like, they've been separated for a long time, like, this asset shouldn't be considered marital, but technically, all marital assets are
like if you and your wife, for example, I'll give my theory and then you can give me like what you're saying, I think, which is like you're happily married for 2 years, right? And then you
only 2.
And then you get no kids, but so you like move out and you stop talking, but you don't do the paperwork. So you did the original paperwork to get married, but then you don't do the divorce paperwork.
You don't divorce on paper.
And then all of a sudden, but you separate, practically speaking, but no paperwork. Then all of a sudden, a year later, husband sells his company for $10 million. Ooh. And the wife, the separated but married still wife, finds out, and her friends start getting in her ear and saying, you never got divorced, and your husband is driving a Ferrari and he sold his company for a ton of money. He never divorced you. You're entitled to half, right? And then she goes, oh my God. And she comes to you.
Start to file now.
What is now, what's going on there?
Yeah. I think the more time that passes with the separation is going to be a factor that the court looks at as to whether that asset or those distribution from the sale of the company would be marital. I would say if only years pass, hell yeah.
Right. Right.
We're going to go after it. But I mean, if you've been separated for like 20 years, sometimes people call me and they're like, yeah, we've been separated for 20 years. I don't know what he has. I don't care. I just want to get my divorce because I'm telling you, they meet people or something happens in their life that they're like,
or you think you love a man, but then he cheats on you, and then you're like, well, now I want to come and I'm coming for everything, right?
That happens often, or vice versa, that she cheats on you, on the man.
Everything changes at that point. You think,
it's really sad.
Then it gets really hostile, right?
And cheating, super hostile. People get really upset, and cheating was never a factor considered in alimony.
Right.
But after the July legislature, everything changed in the law, and now it is a factor.
Oh, wow.
It's not like
super high up there, but
it's a factor. It's like a factorial analysis, right?
Yes.
So you go in the alimony statute and it says, okay, we look at these factors based upon whether someone needs alimony. And one of them is, let's look at their background and whether they were the one taking care of the children and stay-at-home parent. And that's one factor. And then one that's been added on now is whether their own action of cheating or contributing to the demise of the marriage had to do with that. So it's a factor.
Wow.
I think it's pretty, I thought
that's
it was brand new. Pivotal.
Brand new, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brand new. It just got passed in the last summer's legislative session. So
the two main, I always like to try and break things down for people like into like layman's terms. So the two main like financial things that happen when you split up are alimony and child support, right?
Child support, if you have children, alimony can be on the table and equitable distribution. Okay. So in Florida, everything that you have after date of marriage, regardless of title and liability or asset, is considered marital. Unless you have a prenup that says otherwise, unless you have an agreement that says otherwise, unless it's your inheritance that's kept in a separate account. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend you ever commingle it.
Right.
So there's a lot of things, but that's the general rule. And so when you break it down, it's the division of property and assets, which is, and liabilities and all of that, which is under the equitable distribution umbrella. Then you have alimony, and that's based upon need and ability to pay. And not everybody's, people are married for years and neither of them need alimony from one another. It's only if you need it, right? And the other party has the ability to pay it.
Is it the need, then they need it in order to get to the level that they were during the marriage? Is that the idea?
They need it if they're accustomed to a certain lifestyle and they haven't been working. And so like a lot of advice I give to people is make sure, your wife or husband, we're in a modern day. It's not just the wife that's not working anymore. Yep. So make sure your wife or husband, like even if you are making all the money, and I record videos on this on my website on my social, and I say like, encourage them to do something that's their own, get their own work. Even if they're not making as much money, they should do something. Because if they don't do anything, and then you're married for 20 years and you're making the money, they haven't worked for 20 years, you're kind of screwed.
It's a much bigger burden for the earner.
Yeah, I mean, now you have to show, first of all, no matter what, they're getting alimony. Not only are they getting it, but they're going to get it for a long period of time. Like the longer you're married, the more it goes up. But the legislators is making it more difficult. Like they want people to become self-sufficient faster. I think it's a Republican.
Is that I was going to say? Is it a red thing?
It's like same with like the laws changing with like plaintiff injury and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think it is a red thing. I think it's like, okay, you've had your time. They even changed the duration of what is considered to be short, moderate, and long-term marriage. So it used to be a short-term marriage was 1 to 7 years. Now it's 1 to 10. Why that changes, why that's significant is because it affects alimony. So now short-term marriages are 1 to 10, moderate is 10 to 20, and long is anything
20 above
20. So it's kind of changed all of that. So
interesting.
They're basically, I think it's a big message saying you have to be self-sufficient, and you have to, learn to stand on your own 2 feet faster. But it's harder for older people because I read an article about gray divorces and how people that are 55 and older now are filing for divorce more.
Okay.
And imagine if you were just like little housewife, that had no choice and you were working, you were just taking care of the kids and you never got the chance to do anything. And then now divorcing in this legislator, these changes in the laws.
Short-term marriage, 9 years.
You're not lazy. You were taking care of the kids.
Sure.
So, but, it just depends on how long you're married. So it's a lot of things that come in play. And then real estate comes in play a lot because people fight over real estate property, businesses, so all of that's why I like it, because there's so much going on. That's interesting.
It gets really complicated.
Yeah, sometimes criminal issues too.
How do you see criminal issues coming up in a divorce?
Domestic violence.
And that can
battery.
affect like the claim, the time sharing and stuff, right?
It could affect the time sharing if they're deemed, if they're found guilty. It could. I handle domestic violence, but I handle civil domestic violence issues. Sometimes the state presses charges, so they'll have two cases. They'll have a criminal domestic violence and a civil one. Mm-hmm. If the state finds that there's probable cause, like enough to press charges, the state will. And so it could get that's how it could intersect with criminal.
So when you handle civil domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
is that part of the divorce case usually?
No, so it's usually in two separate divisions, but I'll file like a motion to consolidate and ask the court to consolidate everything in one case. Just for the court to be able to, have a, overview of everything going on.
Okay.
So it's in a different division. So usually the same judge will end up taking over both cases.
But would you handle a domestic violence case for non-married people?
Yeah.
So then
some attorneys don't. I would.
So there would be, and then what's the goal? Like, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have abusive, abusive
Definitely.
boyfriends. Like, there's no marriage, there's no kids. It's just an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. And you hear horror stories. Mm-hmm. What's the main goal of a domestic violence civil claim with when there's no family law issues going on?
Yeah. So, most of the time they do have family law issues because they have a child involved. But let's just say it's a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. Right. And one of them was being abusive to the other. And the reason why I never say the guy or the girls, because I've seen it all. And I've seen girls beating the crap out of guys. I've seen, I hate to sound so crass, but I've seen girls hitting guys. I've seen guys hitting girls. So it's on both
the attorneys, we've seen it all.
Yeah, we've seen it all. Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, basically the way that would work is that you would file a petition, and depending on what relationship you have with the person you're filing against, it would be a separate one. So if you had a domestic violence, one of them is called like a repeat violence, and let's say one of them is you have to be the members of the same household. Mm-hmm. Another subsection of the statute is you're not members of the same household, but they're stalking you or something. So there's stalking, there's domestic violence, there's harassment, there's cyber harassment. Yeah, there's a cyber stalking one now. So it just depends on what relationship you have, because boyfriend and girlfriend or girlfriend, boyfriend, they live together.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure you're filing under the right one if you're members of the same household.
And the ultimate goal in these is to what?
The ultimate goal is to get we call it a domestic violence injunction, also known as a TRO or temporary restraining order. And then when you get a temporary restraining order, usually they're issued within 48 hours of the filing. If the domestic violence judge that's reading, it's like one judge that's reading the petitions, and if they find cause or enough is on the face of the petition, they'll issue the TRO immediately.
Okay.
So within 24 to 48 hours of filing. And then the court sets a hearing on the final injunction, because it is very difficult to get a final permanent injunction. And even permanent ones expire after a certain period. They'll be issued for 5 to 7 years, and then they end up expiring.
Yeah.
But then you have to have a hearing on that. So usually, if they hire an attorney, I'll come in and I'll say we need a trial day, we need a full day, because they'll only set the hearings for 15 minutes, and that's not enough time. If there's witnesses, if it's a serious situation, there'll be witnesses involved. There may be photographs, other evidence that. Text messages, sometimes they violate the injunctions right after they're issued, so that's good to show that someone is being threatened still and under that person's control, and they're still harassing them. So that's the ultimate goal,
is to get the
injunction.
The
Some people also abuse that, and then they will do it just to get the person out of the house. So I've seen that's why it crosses over a lot with domestic relations issues, marriages, because people are in marriages, and I strongly believe in some of these issues there's not any evidence of anything occurring, but it happens to get the other party out of the house. I've seen it.
So a fake assault in order to get an injunction?
Or they say
he keeps threatening me.
Yeah, it can't be just verbal threats. It has to be something
physical,
more than that.
Yeah.
But, you know, they'll say like they put their hands on me or they touch me or push me or, you know, whatever it may be. Yeah. And then, you know, I'm always believe my clients when they're victims.
Yeah.
I know when they're victims. Yeah. So, and then that's huge for me to talk to them and figure everything out. A lot of times victims have trouble with telling you everything because they are true victims. They're scared. And
well, this is what I was going to go to next, which is, you know, a real victim that's been abused is there's like a bunch of analysis about it, but you can go through the process to get the injunction, and then a certain amount of time goes by, and
sometimes they drop it.
They invite the perpetrator back into their life, right?
Right.
Because they're so used to the abuse, and they whatever it is. How does that work with when you get the injunction and you like think you're moving on with this person out of your life, and then you go back to them, right? I'm sure this happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if they're looking to get a permanent injunction and they're having direct contact with the perpetrator, then it's likely not going to get issued,
right?
Because the court will say you're not afraid of them. Why are you talking to them?
So it nullifies it, or they lose the ability to get it granted. No?
Well, that's what the attorney would argue.
Right.
I don't think the court may dismiss it. Sometimes these people have attorneys, sometimes they don't.
Right.
But the court would look at the evidence to see, you know, if there's the standard is there substantial competent evidence for this injunction to be entered, essentially. So if that evidence doesn't exist, they dismiss it very fast. I've gone into some hearings where injunctions are dismissed within like 5 minutes. Like I've gotten them dismissed like that.
If there's a piece of evidence that shows something, then
or there's nothing.
They're just like, or there's
Your
no
Honor,
evidence,
you know, he pushed me. Okay, well, what happened? Here's a police report. Oh, sorry, it's hearsay. We object, you know. And then if that's it gets dismissed. Yeah. And sometimes it's to the detriment of the victim.
Sure.
And sometimes the person is not a victim. You really have to, as an attorney, do a lot of, in family issues, do a lot of investigatory work. You can't just like take what everyone tells you as, you know, as accurate.
Yeah.
Sometimes
where's the evidence, right?
Yeah, you have to dig a little deeper. And it's kind of sad to be like, hey, but where's your evidence? But I tell them, I'm so sorry, but I have to put on a case. So unless I have evidence, you're not going to get this injunction granted. So we need to, evidence is not just paperwork or pictures of your bruises or people hitting you. Evidence is witnesses.
Yeah.
Someone saw you. Someone knows that he's been abusive to you before.
Surveillance footage.
Yeah, surveillance footage, emails, like horrible text messages, things that show that you have an abusive nature. So just as the attorney in these situations, our hands are tied unless we can have that. So they're really hard cases.
Yeah.
And usually I pretty much only deal with them when they're intertwined with a current family case. And that happens a lot.
That's because is that because it's without the other issues of like the important issues that go into a family case, it makes it so that like a domestic violence case is kind of hard to handle on its own, right?
It's just a little different. It's not harder or easier. It's just different in that I'm not chomping at the bit to just take a domestic violence case, mainly because of what I just explained. It's really hard position for the attorney to be in. Like, you don't want to let anyone down and say, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to get
Also, I would assume people, like, at the end of the day, how much can someone really afford to pay to just get a piece of paper that says you're not allowed to come near me? Like, how much is that worth? Is that worth 20 grand?
So for $4,000, $5,000 to start, then if I have to do a full day trial, that's another, however much. And not to mention, you can't get fees in domestic violence. You can't.
That makes it way harder if you can't get fees.
You can in divorce, you can in paternity, but not in domestic violence. So
you can in divorce.
You can, yeah.
What is so I don't want domestic violence is it's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah,
I'm sure we could do a whole podcast just on that for helping victims and stuff, which is
I would love that.
I would love that too, because I hate bullies and I hate people like that. So I would honestly spend a lot of time doing that, but I don't think it's the purpose because it's not like your main practice.
No.
Today we're kind of like talking about the people that you do like to help and stuff like that.
Mostly divorce.
Yeah. So you have the three main things that I think you have: the equitable distribution, which basically is saying this is the this is what exists now financially, and how do we split up the money that we have now or liabilities. Then you have the other two areas, which are alimony and child support, which are in the future, right? So alimony is future support for the spouse, and then child support is future support for the children.
Right. So the first one is not just what we have now, but what we've accumulated and acquired all throughout the course of the marriage.
So it's past to current.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Alimony and child support can both be paid on a temporary basis, not just future. So temporary means throughout the legal proceedings.
Okay.
And that also goes for attorney's fees. So if I'm, spouse A and I've stayed at home and I haven't made any money and I have no means, like I have no way to earn money.
Right.
I have no training. I have no education. I have nothing I can do.
Right.
I'm relying on spouse B to pay not only for my temporary support so I can live throughout the proceedings in a manner that I was accustomed to.
Yep.
But I'm also relying on them for fees, and I will get my fees. Yeah.
That's automatic. Based
Pretty
on
much.
need. Based on need.
And statute and case law. So there's a case that's called Rosen v. Rosen, and it's like the main case that says like parties in a divorce proceeding need to be on equal footing. So I'm not going to go get Parastoo and she's going to be this like aggressive attorney, and then you get some like shopping mall person that's like $50 an hour, or you're unrepresented.
Yeah, because it's like that's then the equal. Husband, typically the husband who has all the money,
right,
gets the wife, and I don't have to pay for your lawyer, and so this law fixes
that. It's like pretty much that is the case. Like it's a given, but then if the spouse has the ability to make income, but they're voluntarily unemployed, which happens all the time, or voluntarily underemployed, people like to pull like shenanigans when they're going through divorce proceedings.
I can't work, or I tried getting a job, right?
Yeah.
Because they know they'll just get money from the spouse if they,
Then we'd argue, but they have the ability to make money and they should be on the hook for some of their fees.
Sure.
So sometimes it's all of your fees are paid, and sometimes it's like most, sometimes it's half. But the court will do an analysis, just like it does with pretty much everything else. And usually, if you can, you try to settle the attorney fees issue, because I feel like it's kind of a slam dunk. Like if one of the spouses has no money and the other one does, like she or he's gonna get her fees paid for.
Especially if like it's a housewife and there's 4 kids and she's caring for the kids. Like there's no way you could argue she should be working. Temporary fees,
if it's being litigated, temporary fees, temporary child support, temporary support are on the table.
And those all would get approved like in the early part of the case, right? And then you move to like the later stages?
You have to file a motion. Okay. So if I were representing the homemaker, I would probably do it right off the bat.
Right.
And I would say, I want a motion. I want temporary fees. I want temporary support. I want temporary child support. And so I would probably do that right at the start. But getting hearings in Miami and Broward is a challenge. Mm-hmm. So depending on how much time you need, that also increases the possibility of your hearing being set way out. Like you're not going to get a hearing within a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That easy.
Yeah.
No way. Mm-hmm. So you have to do it right away, because then I would say, let me get a hearing, or let's talk, because I have this motion pending. I have a hearing pending. Let's talk and, give me some of my fees now.
You can just submit an agreed order, or you don't even necessarily need it.
You can totally submit an agreed order. You can get into talks with the other attorney and come to an agreement. Sometimes people don't agree until like the day before the hearing. I know. The pressure is there, but generally it would be reasonable to say she needs some support. Now, some people are living in a way that they don't need support, but they still ask for it. Like their bills are being paid for. That's support. Just because I'm not handing you a check every month doesn't mean you're not getting support. If your bills are paid for,
but the cell phone is still paid for,
like the credit card's paid for, the rent's paid for.
Sure,
look, that's support. Yeah, But some people, push the limit. There's a lot of fighting and animosity in this field. So a lot of that has to do with money, and then a lot of it has to do with kids. So those are like top 2 things that I see getting fought about: money, property, assets, kids. Huge thing that people fight about, kids.
And is it just the timeshare that they're fighting about, or the decision making?
All of it. Like they can't co-parent, they can't communicate with one another. Usually they hate each other, or one of them hates the other person.
Sure.
They have different viewpoints on parenting.
Okay.
Okay, they're like fundamentally completely different.
Okay.
And then they have issues. Oh, this person, I'm trying to think of an example now. Oh, every time he packs up his stuff, he's late, and he meets me at timesharing exchange, he's late, or, he
doesn't bring the kids' stuff.
He doesn't bring the kids' stuff, or I want my child to be in this extracurricular activity, but he's not agreeing. I've seen parents fight over vaccinations. Mm-hmm. I've been involved in a case where that was litigated very highly. I've seen parents fight about pretty much everything you can think of.
Actually, this is again, now this goes into other like really hot topics now, but when I hadn't even thought about the vaccination thing. And then, of course, now the next topic is the gendering stuff, which, I mean, that's like a really
I haven't had that in one of my cases, but I know like
it's inevitable.
Dwayne Wade and his ex-wife
I didn't follow that. I didn't follow that.
About it.
Did they have a falling out about that?
They've had a falling out for a long time. A bunch of their cases have been in the appellate court of appeals. So I haven't read them front to cover, cover to end, but I've never had a case with that issue. But I think as our world is changing,
it's inevitable.
Becoming so different, and now it's more like we're on social media. We're on the internet all day. Like things are just shifting, but parents still fight a lot about.
That will never change. Parents will always fight about a million things.
They just have co-parenting issues.
Yeah.
They can't communicate with each other. They can't.
It's difficult.
They fundamentally cannot. And so for those parents, I have cases that they have those issues, and I say, I think you guys should go see a family therapist or a co-parenting coordinator. So there's someone called a parenting coordinator, and the court will sometimes make them basically work with the parents, or enter an order, and they have to pay for this, obviously, but the parenting coordinator helps the parents co-parent. As attorneys, we're not equipped to help you co-parent. We will file motions.
Sure.
And we will charge you $400 an hour. And then at the end of the day, are we helping you, giving you recommendations on how to co-parent? No, I don't know how to do that. I'm not equipped for that.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of times when I feel like someone's coming to me with an issue that is not legal, they're like, oh, for example, in one of my cases, someone was disagreeing about an extracurricular activity, and they had a huge disagreement about it, and I recommended this, and they were like, that's a good idea, because then they can actually go talk with this person, and maybe they'll resolve future issues, because if they're having an issue about this now, child's, let's say, 6 years old, 7 years old, you're going to have issues in the future. You can't call your lawyers every time
it's too expensive,
someone doesn't bring their uniform
yeah.
correctly, or doesn't wash their, clothes correctly, or doesn't pack the right lunch, or, those are issues I deal with in this field. I listen to them and I try to resolve them, but I'm not.
You explain how things work, and then it's on them to kind of either figure it out or get other professional help. We can't
file a motion for contempt because he was late 10 minutes for pickup. That's really extreme, know. Try to figure it out. Figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Outside of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to just keep billing you for the silliness, but I don't know. I'm not like that.
But
I don't like to.
If you're like, sure, I'll bill you, but then it won't work.
Yeah.
They're gonna wind up hating you.
I feel bad wasting people's money on stuff. Unless they really need it. I feel like that's not a good use of me. I like to rely on professionals that know what they're doing and are equipped in their field or specialize in what they do. I would rather outsource you. You're going to pay them less, and you're actually going to maybe hopefully come to a solution and get better. You're going to be dealing with each other for at least, I think, your whole lives. Because if you're good parents and you want to be there for your kids' first
birthdays, grandkids,
your grandkids, their college graduation, you're always going to have to co-parent, but you at least have to deal with them when the child is through his or her minority. Get it together.
And I lose when I see whoever they are, if they're so immature that they can't even figure out a new baseline to communicate with their ex-spouse and for the good of their child, it just I just lose respect for people.
I know,
like
it's
that.
really hard.
It's put your ego to the side and do what's best for your children. Some people just can't do it. Yeah,
and
it's sad.
So it sucks to see. It really, there's no other way to describe it other than it sucks to see. But I like to advise my clients to do that early on if I see they're having issues, because I'm like, you cannot call me every time there's like.
Yeah, I think that goes back to kind of what we were talking about with training the clients. Like,
totally.
Like, as soon as you see it, like, let me tell you, listen, I understand that you want to talk to me because your ex-husband brought the kids 7 minutes late. But this is not a legal issue. This is a practical issue. You have like a hard discussion. Yeah, talk to each other. If you can't talk to them, there's nothing I can really do. It's, you're wasting a lot of money, and you just have those hard conversations early.
Yeah.
And you get them trained, and then they realize, and you're the one as the attorney, I think, who benefits the most down the road.
Or they get their first bill and then they realize.
Yeah, but that's like the passive aggressive way to do it.
But I've had like crazy clients that like call me a million times a day. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll answer a million times a day.
Right. Yeah. But you're spending your money.
Then they calm down when they get their bill because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
Right. Like every time I pick up the phone, I'm spending money.
Right.
And let me be more cognizant
about the time I'm using. Am I calling them for a good purpose? Am I sending like one email? I had a video on my social about this because people freak out about fees, but I was saying like ways to kind of conduct yourself to expect know what you're going to be paying and use it wisely. Like, I'm not here to burn through your retainer. That's not the type of attorney I am or will ever be.
Right.
But if you I'm going to
return your calls,
right?
Because I'm your lawyer.
Because then if I don't return your calls, you have a problem with me, exactly. And I never want that. I'm always like, I am very communicative. I answer people like usually every day or the next day. No one is ever not going to hear from me, but then you have to be cognizant and aware that I'm providing a service. So the more you use my services, the more you have to pay.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that, but I also don't want you to abuse me and my staff services and then say, I don't want to pay, because then you have that as well.
Yeah. And then they resent you, and then you don't have happy clients, and then everything.
I want them to be happy. I want them to tell them.
Well, in your business, it's hard, but you want them to be as happy as possible, given the circumstances.
Yeah, I want to have good relationships with these people. Like, if everything ends on good terms, usually we're friends. You know, I still talk to them. I congratulate them. I don't know if you know, I did Tiger King's divorce. Not the actual Tiger King, but his husband. But I was the divorce attorney for his husband.
No way. That's so cool.
And I'm going to his wedding next year.
Wait,
Joe.
It's been so long that I forgot the characters. No, I remember the show. I remember Joe Exotic. So
Dylan was my client.
Was that like the young toy boy, whatever? Toy boy. The boy toy? That was his...
Yeah, except he was, at the time they filed, he was making money and Joe was in prison. And I mean, he's still in prison. But I kind of stumbled into that one. That's another story.
Is that still an open case?
No, we got it resolved.
So that's so cool. That's amazing. Yeah. Did you do any press for that?
Yeah, it was all over TMZ.
Oh,
but
wow.
I didn't expect it, because I was like, I got this call one day and it was like, hey, it's TMZ. We want to talk to you. And I was like, what? Why would you want to talk to me? I was really confused. And they're like, we need a statement right now. And I was like, you're not going to get a statement right now, but let me talk to my client, because I wanted to deal with it very delicately, because like I've never really represented someone like in the news like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not just gonna say something without talking to him first.
Sure.
But that was like a high press situation where they were like calling me for statements, because TMZ and like Hollywood Unlocked were like issuing all these stories about how we were, we filed a prenup and then Joe said it was fake, and my client's like, it's not fake. It's literally, we signed it and here's the notary. So we were dealing with some temporary issues, but honestly, we were able to get it resolved within like 9 months.
When was this?
2021.
So it was like the year, because Tiger King came out like a few months into COVID. It was like the biggest thing ever.
Yes.
And
like me and my friends were literally watching it. We were like, this is so
insane.
entertaining.
I remember.
And I couldn't figure out if it was so entertaining because we were all so bored, or because it was genuinely entertaining.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch it. But my client's, he's such a nice guy. He lives in like northern like Pensacola area.
Okay. And
now I guess I got into the story because I said I'm still friends with my clients. I'm invited to his wedding in January. He's getting married again.
That's so funny.
I'm like, I keep in touch with my clients. Like I want I want to be there for them. I want to be friends with them. Some of them, if I can't stand them, I'm not going to be friends with them. But that's very rare. Like, I'd rather just like stay in good terms with them. I see them move on with their lives and
it's great.
Have really good relationships after, or sometimes they need me again.
Yeah.
It's a revolving door.
Yeah.
So I like to keep in good touch with them and just like, keep tabs on them and say like, you know, how are you? How are you doing?
Of course.
That's my like ideal start to finish. But then you have the one or two people that you never want to see again in your life. You know, you're like,
I have those
good riddance. And honestly,
and you don't want any referrals from them either because the other people are the same.
Exactly. So you'll have those too. But I mean, generally, I'd really like to see my clients like turn in to the best version of themselves and then move on with their lives. And hopefully if they want to find someone else, they are more equipped to handle a relationship and they have found a better match and they're happier.
What do you see as like, what are the biggest mistakes people make with marriage, whether it be marriage, divorce, co-parenting? Like, is there anything that you see that you wish, like, this is kind of what I was going at earlier, people who fail to do the paperwork and then they think they're married, but they're not married, or, you know, the husband buys the house before they're married and then the house is only in his name and then the wife thinks that she owns half the house.
That's like a huge mistake.
Is that a big one?
Oh, I see that happen all the time.
Okay.
Or the thing I see happen more is somebody has a house that they purchased pre-marriage.
Right.
Then they put the other person's name on the deed. Then they're flipping out and they're like, but it was my house. And I'm like, right. It was your house. But then you gifted it to them. You essentially put them on title. Once you put someone on title, that's it. And so it's such a grave mistake. But I've seen it happen in the last year at least 3 times, just in the last year. And people are very up in arms and upset. So my recommendation would be if you have a premarital property, keep it premarital and do not put them on the deed unless you want to, and unless you understand the ramifications.
Well, I think the key is that they just need to know what they're doing.
Means, right? Like they're thinking, I'm just going to put you on the deed because we're refinancing, and then you're going to be on the mortgage. Just like, no. When you put them on the deed, they now own half of the house, and then you can't come in later and say, well, I bought it pre-marriage and then I added you on the deed. It does not matter. There is something in the statute. I just went to the conference. So there's a statute that says, part of the statute in the equitable distribution that says, like, if you did that, then it's presumed marital. So that's a huge one.
So even if a prenup exists and it says the house is mine, you sign that?
No, that's different.
Oh, even if you add them to title, then it would be like,
that would be a weird one.
Yeah.
I feel like, so if the prenup existed and it said, my house is mine, no matter what. And then you're saying later.
Yeah, you add them to title. That's a weird, that
is a weird situation. I think depending on who I was representing would change what I argue.
Yeah, of course.
But I would say that's pretty much a knife in the, what do they say? Knife in the coffin?
Yeah, it's bad. It's, like that's I don't know.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty much it. Like, once you put someone on title, married or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, if you have a bank account with $100,000 in it and it's in your name and then you get married, that money's still yours.
Yeah.
Until you add your spouse's name.
Commingling is what we
account.
call it.
Yeah.
In a family law community, we call that commingling. So a lot of times people get inheritances from parents, grandparents, whatever.
Yeah.
They have an inheritance in a trust or they have it in their own account. And then what they do is they either take that money and they put it in a joint account or they put the other party's name on the account.
Yep.
And so now the other side has a very good argument that you have commingled the funds with marital funds. And I've seen that happen before. I've seen a lot of money be commingled because the spouse added the other spouse's name to that account where her dad had given her a bunch of money. And so that's a huge mistake as well. And I think just not knowing just generally what things that you do mean.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are not married or they're not thinking about it. Then they get married. Everything's great. Then comes time to think about it. I think it's good to consult with a divorce attorney, like even if you're not married and you're thinking about getting married and maybe you don't even want a prenup.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But just what do things mean? And if I do this, what does it mean? And explain to me like the basics, like similar to your wife being a real estate attorney. You don't have to have a real estate attorney represent you in a real estate transaction, but I think it's a good idea because she's protecting you as the buyer or the seller of the home. And I think that's something just to like pay for 1 hour of my time and talk to me about it. And I will tell you everything you need to know. It's a good investment.
And you have my number. Right. Things come up in the future. We have an existing relationship. Maybe your spouse is acting a little weird and you're like, I'm
what
not
are they
sure.
Doing? Or,
like, have you seen this before? Should I, people like we as attorneys, we take a lot of our knowledge for granted.
I think so too.
So it's like, as a regular non-attorney, it's really nice to have an attorney that that you can even shoot a text.
Yeah.
Okay, voice message back. Hey,
I do that with my friend all the time. My friend
like,
Jesse. We talk every day about. Well, he's a family attorney, but we bounce ideas off each other every day. And going back to what you said about taking knowledge for granted, I have a huge problem with that because I think what we do is so much not as tangible. It's like I'm not printing something on, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like an example. Like I'm not giving you an item that you paid for. Like I'm not giving you a Louis Vuitton bag or something.
We do services, not products.
But when you call me and I'm giving you advice, you're paying for all my training, my advice, the time I take to learn things, like my experience with cases. And people don't like take it.
Yeah.
Like they take it for granted. And like they call all the time and they're like, I have to pay for a consult?
Yeah.
It's like, yes.
Yeah. Or I mean,
I don't do free consults.
Yeah. Do you want to do? You could go to Google and maybe you get a good answer, maybe you don't, and
you probably won't, or you'll get an answer and you'll think you'll understand it, but it won't apply to your situation because Google's so generalized, and it's not like that example you gave about if someone with the prenup says it's my house and then later in the marriage they add like Google's not going to have the answer to that question.
No, that's super like narrow, it's niche, so niche, random.
Exactly, but people take it so for granted and then they get like upset. And I've made also one of my resolutions for this year was I'm not going to give people free consults anymore unless I want to or unless I know them, if they're a friend and I feel like I want to because I want to talk to my friend. Like I charge my friends to talk to me,
Yeah, of course.
But I don't want to do that anymore. I think my mantra is you should be, I think the way I would say it is you really need to be able to see what you're paying for. Like you need to appreciate and understand what service you're paying for. And if you're getting things for free, I feel like you don't understand that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that out loud because it's like I want to help people for free, but I want to be able to help people for free. Like I do pro bono stuff. Mm-hmm. I have in the past. I've drafted pro bono briefs. Yep. Like I've given my time. If I want to give my time, I want to have control over that. But if you call my office and you want to talk to me, I feel like you should understand that, you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not a mill. You're getting quality.
Yeah.
Like you're going to...
Specialized service. I'm going to actually know what your case is going on.
Right. I'm going to know it front and back. I'm going to know everything. I'm going to talk to you all the time. I'm never going to leave you in the dark. Like I'm going to be, on top of it. And it's going to be specialized. Like this is not a normal, I'm not running a mill. I'm not on a billboard, You know
what I've seen done in your position? Because you're like, we do free consultations, but that's because that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it is.
We're like brokers, so we have to do a lot of stuff on the come, so to speak. But what I've seen in your business is forcing people to like do a little bit of upfront work. So like, for example, if someone wants to talk to you and you don't want to give them a free consultation because they're going to ask you a million questions and they probably don't want to pay for your services or whatever, you need to have like some kind of built-in screening mechanism. So what I've seen done is like,
an intake?
Yeah, like an intake. Like, okay, like if you are interested in our services, fill out this form and, maybe even putting in some kind of like your answers, the thoroughness of your answers will be considered when we decide whether or not you'll be a good candidate to represent for our firm.
I think so. my assistant or paralegal, depending on their times that they're working, they do that type of intake.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make people do like any extra work. I don't want to make it hard for them to hire me.
Yeah.
But I also want them to understand, well, my thinking is if you can't pay for a consult, you're not going to pay for my retainer.
Right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's no way.
Right.
And I even throw in a bone. I'm like, if you hire me, I'll deduct the 30-minute consult fee from your first bill.
Right. So it is technically free for clients.
Yeah.
If you become a client. Yeah.
I put a stake in
That's
it.
great,
like,
actually.
I don't care. Like, as long as you are
this is not a scam for me to make money, right? Yeah.
Like, I'm not making money off consultations.
Yeah,
Let's be clear here.
Yeah.
But if your foot's in the door and they're bought in, I don't care if they pay for 30 minutes or an hour. They're bought in. I'm deducting it off their first bill. I'm not here to make money off the consults. I want people to know that they're getting what service they're paying for. It's a top quality service. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't want to attract those types of clients. I want to attract a certain clientele.
Yeah.
So if they can't afford a $250 consult, are you going to be able to afford a $5,000 retainer?
Yeah. No.
Likely not.
Yeah.
And then, based upon your case, you may not need all of this. Like, you may actually be better off going to someone that does it for you in 2000, but will you be able to ever get in touch with them? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, you might be represented by a paralegal.
I see so many people that are like, oh, I found you. I'm so grateful. Like, we actually get to talk. And like my last attorneys, I literally never heard from them.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously? And I met a client. He's a very good client. He's still my client today. He's a very good client, like very good. And he told me his last attorneys that he hired, he was like, I was like, so what's going on? Because I met him in my building, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know what's going on in your case?
They don't talk to me. Yeah.
When was the last time you heard from them? Like last month. So did they file this? I don't know. Did they send you this? I don't know. So I didn't even have to convince him to hire me. I was like, you should know those things.
Yeah.
So let me know if you ever need any help. Like,
yeah.
It's very weird. I send my clients everything I file. So you always know what's been filed from the other side and me. And there's no like surprises.
Yeah.
So just not knowing and that lack of communication I've seen is a big issue. And I'd rather be the opposite end. I'd rather over communicate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's another reason why it's so important, going full circle on our podcast.
Yeah.
There's another reason why it's so important to go to these networking events and like let these non-attorneys, like, actually I don't like the lawyer ones as much because they're all lawyers. We're kind of in our bubble.
Yes.
We don't really, a lot of value isn't created for you at those.
I agree.
And I mean, not you, I mean,
yeah, of
us,
course, as attorneys.
Yeah.
I agree, especially when they do the same work as you.
Yeah, well, especially, yeah.
We're not going to send, like, I'm not going to get clients from you likely, but
Right. But if you go to, like, for example, I think it's so cool that you're an instructor at Pilates, doing things like that, or like having I'm big in the gym. So every morning for me, all the people, everyone in the gym's like, oh, my lawyer doesn't talk to me. I'm like, well, I'm right here. Let's talk.
Exactly.
They're like, well, it's so cool. Like, I've represented a lot of people from the gym now because they get to know you and they're like, oh, you're an actual person. Like, and the same way that the guy in your building loves having you as his lawyer because he knows that you're an actual person. He can talk to you.
Right. He has my cell phone.
Right.
Like, there's no surprises. I'm not trying to like dodge anyone's calls ever. So I think it's weird when people do that. I don't get it, but that is the number one complaint I hear about. I can't get in touch with my attorney and I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it's the same in personal injury, and I've gotten a lot of.
It's shocking to me.
I've gotten a lot of really good cases over the years because, like,
as a result of someone else dropping
like I'm at the gym and someone's like, "Hey, can you tell me?"
Like, I heard you were an attorney.
I have a question for you. Like, I got rear-ended by a FedEx truck, and I have a herniated disc. And do I have a good case? And
You're like, yes.
You have a great case. I'm like, who's your do you have a lawyer? Yeah, but they never call me. I'm like, well, come to my office this afternoon and we'll talk.
Totally. I feel like the same thing. And it's not even, I don't even have to try. I'm just like, okay, so if you ever need anything, give me a call. Like, if I just meet them naturally. And then sometimes they call me and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is such a better experience. That's what you're paying for. I
love that. That's my favorite thing about being a lawyer is when it's kind of sad because in order for this to happen, the client has to be like abused by their first attorney. Bad experience. But then they get to realize how nice it is to be actually represented by a real attorney.
They'll never take you for granted.
They'll never take you for granted.
They'll always be so happy.
They're so appreciative.
Yeah. They'll always be so happy. And I feel like when some people get like upset with me, even when I communicate with them like every day, I'm like, go see how it's like out there.
I know. It's almost like go hire one of these people on the billboards for 5 minutes. And
you're upset about your circumstances, not about my services.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
There's a huge difference. And the circumstances are what make people act so out of pocket sometimes.
Yeah.
To the point where like my last boss used to call it reading them the riot act when like someone's acting like crazy and you have to be like, if you don't stop, we're done. Like we're done.
Yeah.
And so some people, you have to get to that escalation where they try to abuse, and then you only can take so much. And you're like, I'm not putting up with this. So I don't know who you think you're talking to right now. You know, it's what the
you have to read them the riot act sometimes.
Yes, and you have to say, if you don't stop,
we're done.
We're done.
You're back on the streets.
We are not responsible
calling some hotline
for your crazy wife. Like I understand she's driving you crazy and costing you money, but that's not our fault.
Yeah.
We're trying to help you. So I have to kind of reiterate. We're trying to help you.
Yeah.
Please don't take it out on us.
Yeah.
And we can only take so much.
It's tough because they're in a bad position and they're just like spinning out of control.
I know, and they realize that sometimes they come to earth and they're like, oh.
A lot of times
I couldn't control myself. I'm so sorry. Like
a lot of times within 2 minutes of like.
Yep.
I call it slapping them around, which I shouldn't say, but it's like, obviously I never touched them, but
of course,
over the phone, I'm like, I got to slap this client around a little bit because he's getting crazy.
I'll send him a motion to withdraw. I'm like, I'm filing this if you don't stop.
I've done that before.
You know how it is.
Amazing results.
You know how it is. You got to keep, like you said, train and keep them in line.
So yeah, training clients is a very big deal, especially in your business where they could potentially be much longer cases or repeat clients.
Right.
So as we draw to a close, a lot of lawyers will listen to the podcast, like young lawyers. What was it like, or can you just give them an idea of like what was like starting? Because this is one of the biggest topics that people are always like, what was it like? Were you scared? Did you how did you have the confidence to do it?
Yeah.
And you did it at a young age, probably about similar age as I did. So
I was 30.
Yeah.
So it was pretty young compared to like other attorneys in my field. But I think it was more, so I was working for someone. I moved to Miami when I was 25.
Okay.
I think we're doing the podcast backwards. So now I'm telling you we
did a little bit.
Getting into like
name
change and everything. But when I moved here, I thought I wanted to do, actually I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I worked for this firm. I'm not going to name them, but there was a business litigation firm. Then I had negotiated my salary, and my salary was like really meager because I was a law clerk.
Okay.
And I was going to take the Florida bar in February of 2018. So I moved to Miami in August of 2017. So we literally all summer were like, okay, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to make. Once I once I take the bar and I pass, hopefully I'll pass.
Right.
Because I had already passed a bar in Kentucky.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to do it again. Don't worry. Then I get to this salary. Then I'm a full-time associate. We had a trajectory planned. And then it all fell apart in 4 months because he basically told me that he doesn't have money to pay me anymore. And I said,
welcome to Miami.
I said, what? Like,
you're a lawyer. You have a firm.
What the fuck did we just start? I don't know if I can cuss.
It's okay.
What did we just like negotiate for like 2 months? And like, why did you waste my time? And I moved to Miami. And anyway.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
He happened to have a crossover case with a family law attorney. She's a really good family law attorney in Miami. She handles complex high asset divorces. She was nice enough to say, I actually kind of need a law clerk. Would you be interested in clerking here? I said, sure. Give me what you got. Like I'm like on the streets at this point. You just got the rug pulled out from under you. Yeah. So I went and I clerked for her, and then she ended up offering me. I took the bar. I was studying like pretty much all of February, March. She ended up offering me a position. So I worked for her for about 3 or so years, and then I worked for someone else. And then going back to your original question, I wanted to start my own firm after her, but I was still like, I'm not ready. I don't know. Let me just like wait a little longer. Then I went to the next firm and I was bringing in like a lot more business of my own. And I started getting an opportunity with this company that will send you cases. They take a huge cut. I don't work with them anymore, but I don't need to. But at the beginning, I was like, let me do this because this will be able to kind of catapult me into just starting my own thing.
Sure.
And then that was part of the reason why I felt ready. I was like, okay, I can just do, even if I have to do like doc review. Like I am so sick of working under someone's like reign, you know? And I don't know. I usually am a pretty confident person. I still feel like always insecure about what I'm like, am I doing it right? Do I know everything? To this day, you know, am I filing the right motion? Like, but then I talk to other attorneys, 6 years my senior. Okay, we all feel that way
we
all
have that
the time. And so I just decided to do it because I was like, there's like no time like the present.
Sure.
So I just decided to do it. And it wasn't necessarily hard to start the business. Like it's a law firm, you know, you don't need a brick and mortar.
Right.
Like,
you don't need anything crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I just needed, you know, me, liability insurance, and a trust account, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then little by little, like I did stuff. And then now I have an office and, you know, I was able to grow, and now I don't have to take cases with that, you know, company that takes a big cut.
Yep.
And, you know, I used it to my benefit.
Just one step at a time.
Yeah. You just have to do it one step at a time. And like, don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're not ready. I mean, if you feel ready, then that's on you. You will feel ready. You'll know, like it's time. I
think a lot of people, sadly, like are, I don't know what the right word is, but they're embarrassed maybe to like what I started. I like give no fucks. So
I love that.
I'm on the other side of the spectrum.
Okay.
Like,
what are they embarrassed about?
They're like, oh, I won't have a nice fancy office. I won't have, I won't have letterhead that looks nice. Like all these things that I could understand once you've worked at a firm for a few years. You're like, I won't have a paralegal. I'm going to have to file my own motions. I'm going to have to, I don't know how to do a website.
What?
You know, all these things.
I file my motions all the time. And
well, the world is changing now. I'm a little bit older than you. But so, you know,
I had a P.O. box.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty.
Literally, for like a year. And then I was like, okay, now I really do need an office because I'm getting to a point, not that the P.O. box is just not working.
Yeah.
And it worked for like 9 months. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. I had something to put that wasn't my home address. I'm not giving these people my home address, you know?
Yeah.
But then, you know, you do little by little, and you should never be embarrassed because at the end of the day, there's a lot to be said about someone that can hang their own shingle and go get after it, honestly. And I feel like solo practitioners kill it in court, and we have to force ourselves to be good attorneys because I'm relying on me, myself, and I only, you know? So I have to I have to push myself.
You have to get the cases. You have to talk to the clients, finish the cases, process the money.
But I do what I want when I want to.
Yes.
And I like that. I'm an independent person. Yeah. And I had gone to a point where I was like, you know, I learned a lot. I soaked up all the knowledge I could. And it's now either me going to work for someone else and getting paid the same stupid salary and like, you know, I don't want to be these
just
people's
stuck in
partners.
the rat race, so to speak.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be a partner of this firm. I want to have my own thing. Like, I want to have a firm, you know, eventually where I can grow and maybe I'll have a partner, maybe I'll have associates, but I'm happier in life because without doing that, I wouldn't be able to do my fun like once a week teaching at
You wouldn't
Form
be
50.
here right now on a weekday.
Wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. I would still be in the office.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. I would.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be in the office till 6:30 every day. But I finish my work at 5:45. Nope. You got to stay in your seat.
Just in case
till
boss
6:30.
needs you. Yeah.
Like I hate these like political like stupid things that are like passed on by generations. Like, and I've gone to a point now where I'm working with a paralegal. She's remote. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm working with an assistant. She's remote. We're all remote, and it works great. I have a good team. You know, things are functioning. It takes time. I'm two years in, but like, I feel like by this time next year, I'll have something else that I didn't have last year. And I did it super young. So now I'm like, hopefully by the time I'm 35, I'll have an associate or like, you know, I'll have something else. And I think it's all about building and being confident in yourself. And no one should care what anyone thinks about like Preach. Letterhead, like
offices, cars, all that shit.
Do it your best. Do what you believe in. If you practice the way you believe in, it'll come. Like the business will come and you'll be happier and you'll have flexibility to do things that you like, because being a lawyer all day is not fun. You have to do other things that make you happy. It's going to make you a better person and better lawyer.
Did you always knew that you wanted to have your own firm?
Kind of.
From law school?
I feel like I didn't. No, I didn't. I just learned over time because I was like, I hate these
you started experiencing
and the bully. I had to deal with so many like older like women attorneys that were like so mean to me and like bullies and just like dealing with the politics of it all. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with politics. I want to be a lawyer. I don't want to deal with like, oh my gosh, but like you have to sit at your desk until 7 and oh no, you mustn't like
you're only going to this event because Joe thinks you're pretty.
Right.
Or and like, now everyone's talking shit.
Yes. Or oh my gosh, like I can't believe that they're wearing that or doing that. And like, I don't have to do that again ever because I don't work with anyone.
Amazing,
I work with my paralegal and we're cool. We literally joke with each other and laugh, and I trust her and like my assistant, and like there's no gossip and like behind the scenes. Like we don't do that. And so I want to build a supportive network for female attorneys mainly because I feel like female attorneys need more support and more opportunities. And so if I can be that in the future for someone, I want to get that because I never really got those types of. There was only like one mentor. Her name was Diana. I worked for the assistant state attorney in Ohio, and she was so kind to me and like helped me. And I'll always, shout out my good mentors. I still have a really good mentor now. His name's Barry. He's a family law attorney. He's great. There's people that have mentored me, and then there's people that I'm just like, I don't want to deal with these. I don't have to do this. I really don't. And I can make triple or double the amount of money or more, and I have a higher ceiling, and like I don't have to put up with this. Yeah. So
well said.
I think people need to just take the leap. If you're feeling like you're ready, it doesn't take much to get the foundation started. Just get started.
Yeah.
I
think it comes from like, how fed up are you?
So I was pretty fed up.
If you're really fed up and like.
My tipping point was like feeling like I was doing everything at that office, the last office I worked at. And then me asking for one thing, which was, can I work remote one day? Like one Friday of the week? Yeah. No.
They didn't even consider it.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was like, okay.
And that was post-COVID too.
That tells me everything I need to know post-COVID.
Which is insane.
And I was like a really good worker. Like I work hard. Yeah. I was getting after it. I was handling all the clients. I was basically managing the office. I'm like, if I'm doing this for you, why don't I just do this for me?
Yeah. You're basically running your own firm.
Right. I was like, why don't I just do this other than the financial stuff, which I had to like learn. Yeah. But whatever, you teach yourself.
Yeah. So what? Don't fall for that. Lawyers don't know how to do math.
Right.
Kind of bullshit,
you put a retainer in your trust account and you invoice monthly. I mean, it's not that hard.
But as you know, I'm sure you have friends in law school and people are asking you, how'd you do it? Aren't you like worried a lot? People have
I am
these
worried
issues.
A lot.
People have, but you are not worried so much that you paralyzed you from doing it.
No, of course not. I mean, you have up and down. Like last month, great month. This month, a little slower. Yeah. Next month, great month. Yeah. It all balances out, and it's all about owning a business. Like some months are not going to be like every other month, but once you get a steady flow, and like I'm doing more marketing, and I got on the Super Lawyers thing, and I'm doing marketing with that. And once you get on a steady flow, like I'm 2 years in, I'm doing this. Wait till the next 2 years.
The building is the fun part. You add one piece here, and then you add one piece here.
You just do little by little. That would be the best advice I give. Don't think you have to like have this fancy office and have all of this right away. Just get started. You can literally work out of your house. And
when I started, I lived in a studio apartment, 450 square feet. I had no office. I drove a Honda Accord that was like 10 years old, and I was the happiest person ever. Had like 9 cases. Yeah. And I was still my 9 cases. My salary was like $60K that I would have had if I was stayed at the firm.
I settle all my 9 cases. I probably make like 80 or 90K, and I have no boss. Amazing. Like, how could you?
You can go on vacation whenever you want.
Yeah.
You can take a day off if you need to. I can go work out middle of the day if I need to. That's for my mental health. Like, and some people with a more antiquated viewpoint may say, "Oh my God, no, you need to be working 12 hours at the office." No, you guys are just not efficient with your time.
Yeah.
I'm efficient. If I sit down in front of a computer and I give myself 5 hours to do billable work, I'm billing probably all 5 of those hours.
Sure.
But
slow and steady.
I'm not like talking on the phone with my colleagues. I'm not like on Instagram, like scrolling. I'm not wasting time. I'm not going to lunch. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm getting work done. When I don't want to get work done, I don't get work done. So I think anyone that's considering it should just know that it's a building. It's building blocks. Can't do everything at once. Do little by little, and the business will come. You have to do some marketing, and you have to get out there, and you know,
can't be in your pajamas all the time.
Can't be in your bed eating hot Cheetos. Which is like my favorite.
You can do that in bill, but you can't do that in get new cases.
Right, exactly. You got to go out there. You got to make your face known, and you got to do some marketing, and you know, it'll happen, but it'll take time. So if you save up maybe a little nest egg just to keep you like from getting stressed out about, oh, am I making money this month? Like, I would highly recommend that. Yeah,
that's another important thing is living below your means as much as possible so that you can stay calm and totally build up your war chest. So
absolutely. I think anyone can do it.
Anybody can do it. Absolutely. For sure. If I did it, you did it.
And I love it. I think more people should do. We need more small businesses and less of these like corporate life. Like, if someone came and worked for me now, like when I'm ready to hire an associate, I want to push a good culture. Like, I'm not, yes, you're going to have a billable minimum, of course, but like, it's not going to be crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to talk to me. We're going to have a good relationship, and I'm going to support you and help you.
Yeah,
like,
for
you know, we all had to work hard to get where we are. So just same mentality, but just like not toxic, you know, like I want it to be super supportive.
Yeah. The world is changing.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, post-COVID, it's like they did you a blessing by saying no to the remote work because you were just like, all right, F this, I'm out.
I was done.
Yeah, I mean, post-COVID at a law firm, especially if you're doing well, for them not to even say 1 day a week, whatever, is crazy. But the world is changing, and people who can do it realize they can do it, and then they go and they do it, and then they're not shackled by you know, the legacy institutions.
I'll never go back. I've had people ask, would you want to come work for like our firm? Like, we're looking. No.
Yeah.
No. Absolutely
yeah, my wife. They do that to my wife all the time. She's like, no, hell no.
No. Yeah, exactly. She's smart. She knows that there's no flexibility, and the beauty of life, I think, is not overworking. It's finding a balance.
Yeah.
And being able to actually get more done in less time, using your time efficiently, and finding a work-life balance. I think it's very old school to be like, oh my God, we have to be working 17 hours a day. Like, who does that anymore? Do you really need to do that to be successful?
You do that like the 4 days before trial, the 3 or 4 times a year, maybe.
Totally.
And
when I have an evidentiary hearing, when I have a trial course, I'm not getting sleep. I'm busting my ass, but who does that every day? Like, that's not sustainable. And then you wonder why you're miserable.
Yeah.
And toxic, and you repeat that toxic cycle.
Yeah, and then you're mean to everybody.
And you're mean to everyone. You're cranky, and you hate your life. I wonder why.
Yeah.
You know?
Just wait until you have kids.
I know. That's what I keep hearing. I'm like, I'm going to hold off just a little bit on that one.
No, but it's amazing. That's obviously like a longer topic for being a business owner and a parent. It's amazing. But again, another reason why you're going to be so well situated, of course, if you want to have kids and if you want to keep working. Because I won't
be in those first building stages.
Well, you won't be in the first building stages, but I feel terrible for like a mom who has a regular job, like as an employee, and then there's like pressure to come back to the office. Care. You can't drive your kids to school. It's the flexibility.
Your maternity leaves like come back in 4 weeks. Yeah. It's like, what?
You can build the whole practice to accommodate you as a mom if you want to, and no one will even know that you're doing both things, you know?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really good point.
You will never be able to
feeling shackled by someone like gives me like hives. Like, I just feel like, you know, if someone it's so much control someone has over your life, your destiny, your happiness, and I think we should be in control of our own destiny.
Well, that's amazing that you have, but a lot of and I don't want to make it too much a gender thing, but a lot of females are much more likely to fall into the, like they're just better students. They like their assignments. They like to just follow the lead and just go with the flow.
They don't want to like take
They don't want to do confrontation, and they don't want to like.
My sister's a business owner, so I kind of felt like she's a doctor.
Well, I was gonna say, did your parents kind of like have anything to do with this?
No, honestly, it was really me, because like even I was like, I'm gonna do it, you know.
I don't mean that they pushed you. I mean that they raised you in a sense where like were they business owners,
like, independent and like believe in myself. Yeah. But I think my sister is a doctor. She owns her own office. Wow. And she was like, I feel like that was the best decision I ever made, you know? Mm-hmm. And some people are better suited to be business owners and some people aren't. But if what's preventing you from doing is not believing in yourself, that's a different story. Yeah. Like you could be a great attorney and just not want to own your own business and deal. We have to deal with a bunch of crap. It's like, sometimes I'm doing stuff all day and I'm like, I haven't made $1 today. Yeah. I've just been like building my website, posting something on social media, like, you know, doing accounting, doing invoices, like looking at my bank account, and then look, 5 hours has passed, you know? Yeah. But I think some people are just better suited and don't even want to do that. And then they're happy and they want that life. And that's totally fine. Yeah. And then there's a group of people that are like, I want to do that, but I just don't, I'm scared, or I don't believe in myself, or someone's going to like make fun of me, or like, I'm not going to be good enough. And trust me, I have those days all the time. I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm young. No one takes me seriously.
Anything.
I don't know anything. I literally wake up. I'm like, I feel like I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I need to figure this out. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, I freak out about that, but then I come back down to earth and I'm like, it's okay. Like we all feel this way sometimes, and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if some of these people can do it, I can do it.
But that's part of, you don't just get all these amazing benefits without any downsides, right? Like you don't pay, no pain, no gain. You have to suffer in order 100%. To be the master of your own domain.
I see people like really, like attorneys that are not prepared, that are not on top of it. I'm just trying to be really political right now. Like attorneys that are just like are not doing a good job, and they're solos and they have their own firm. I'm like, if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think every like, especially like you said, like young attorneys, female attorneys should hear that message. Like, look around you. You see people all the time that you're like, you're not as prepared as me. Like, you know, you don't work as hard as me. Like, what makes you different than me? So that's kind of like what I was thinking. Like, what makes any of these people different than me? Just the fact that they have more experience under their belt.
Yeah, don't fall for that gaslight bullshit where they're like, you don't know what it's like to be the man. Yeah. Like, you could never do it. Like,
you need 5 more years. It's
actually not that hard. Like, it's hard, but it's not that hard.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the bigger you get, the more problems you're going to have, because you're going to have employees. Now I have to like pay people. Now I have to figure that out. But it's really not that hard.
But you build it one step at a time, right? You don't just hire 5 people when you're
only
you don't need
paid.
Yeah.
Just do everything yourself and file your own damn shit. I just filed something myself. Like I have no one working tomorrow. So I'm like, I have to answer my own phone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
I need to answer the phone. It's okay.
The option
I'll survive.
Or you could go back to being an employee.
Right.
And then everything you do is subject to your boss's approval.
Correct. So. And you get paid this much.
Yeah.
So, and then they get away with it because they can.
So. Well, I'm very, very grateful that you came on and shared some of your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
We should definitely do it again, because
I would love
there's some more... there's a lot more. I mean, we could talk about the entrepreneur journey. Right. We could talk about networking, the female attorney stuff.
Yeah.
I would invite you, if you have anybody else that wants to come on in the studio, make some content together about their journey. And,
I gotta think of. I think I have a couple of people in mind, but
awesome. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. So. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. First podcast. I hope I did okay.
You crushed it.
Yes.
You did great. So we're signing out, and we'll see you guys soon.